Hello, it's part two of the LHIMS guide today, and today we'll be talking about charting medications on the LHIMS system. I assume that you already know how to locate a patient at the nurse's station from part one, so I'm going to continue from there. There are written versions of these guides that will be made available on teletnurse.com, so make sure to check it out. The key to charting medications on LHIMS is actually dependent on understanding how the system has been programmed to work. Now, the first steps in doing so is locating a client, and I have located a client whom I want to send medication for. I'm going to use this client to also explain how the system has been coded so that you understand what to expect. Okay, so today this client was reviewed, and going into the client's AM to check what review medications were given. I'm going to access the treatment plan for today. Okay, so for today, suspension AL and then syrup P more was prescribed for this particular client, and it was prescribed at 9:16. Okay, so what I want you to take note of is the date and then the time the medication was prescribed. So let's look at how we chart medication. To chart medication on LHIMS, you need to use any of the buttons here, these blue buttons you see here. If you don't see it here, because you probably can't see medications here, then it will be located at the end of today's medication right here. Okay, so today's medication, these medications are what we have for today. If the client is not reviewed to take any medications tomorrow, that means when you come, you won't see anything here because these medications are the medications that are due for that particular day. But when you click the button to edit drug, you should find the medications that you are supposed to serve. So the date here indicates that it's 8th. Yes, and that is correct. Now you'd realize that this particular client initially was on IV more, and then we are switching to a new medication. So the IV more is completed, and looking at the treatment sheet for this client, you would realize that the last dose of the IVP more was served at 2 p.m. Okay, which means the next dose of the syrup more will be due at 10. Now, here is the mechanism. Since the syrup more was prescribed at 9, it means that uh, within 24 hours from 9, you'd have two times to chat before it is 12 a.m., which is 12 a.m. the next day. So even if we were going to serve at 10 a.m., then it means the next dose will be due at 6 p.m. And from 6 p.m., the next dose will be due at 2 a.m., which is the next day. So the system only allows you it allows or gives you the check boxes to check for a particular day, or you have only the number of check boxes you are going to need in a day. So looking at this, we only have two times left from 9 a.m. to chat. So we only have two boxes here, which means that when we chat this first one, the second one, the other boxes would appear the next day. So let's change this day to 9th and then see something here. So you see that the box is continuous the next day. So it assumes that you may be able to chat 6 a.m. here, and then maybe chat 2 p.m. here, chat 10 p.m., which is 3 in that day. Same applies to the artesunate suspension. From 9, we have two times the chat. This is a BD drag. So 9 a.m. and then 9 p.m. or maybe 10 and 10 p.m., 10 a.m., 10 p.m. But looking at this one, the number of boxes we have the next day is not 3 like the PMO, but it's 2 because this is a BD medication. So it assumes that within the day you are going to need only two boxes to chart. This means that when you come to chart a medication and you can't find any boxes, then it means for that particular day you want to chart, the medication should be completed. Therefore, if you have any charting to do, you have to go back in time. One day, you have to go back one day in time to chart. Something like that will happen to this syrup PMO. We completed the IV PMO at 2 p.m. So the next dose is at 10. When we serve this 10, it means the next one will be 6 a.m. But by the time the night staff will come to chat, it will be the next day. Because if we are serving at 10 p.m. and the next dose is at 6 a.m., this should change to 9. So I've already changed this date to 9. Now let's search 9. They are going to see these boxes. So they may end up chatting this one and ignoring that particular one. So it has been established earlier that Lightwave gives you the number of boxes you are going to have to chat within for a particular day per the time that the prescriber prescribes that medication. Now, I want us to note that we don't sometimes choose the time we serve the medication, but we serve according to when the medication is available or when the patient comes from the OPD and gets to the ward. So, for this particular example I'm going to give, something of that sort happened. We had to start serving the medications at 12 p.m. And so that's exactly what we did. Now, the medication was prescribed before 12 p.m. So by the time that the medication was available, we had to start at 12. Now, some people are of the view that when you are to serve the medication, you should have a computer beside you so that as soon as you serve the medication, you chat so that you are able to prevent the instances where the time elapses and then you have to try to back chat, and then it also gives you whatever time it wants. And but not every ward or every hospital has the luxury of those kind of laptops to give to every nurse on the shift to use and we actually can't also use our phones to do that, even though the phones can be connected. But in some hospitals you would have to take the phone to the IT personnel for the person to configure and a whole lot of issues. So the best thing is to use the hospital's computer, but we don't have that luxury of computers, so we that's actually not a viable option. Back to the topic on point. So I am going to try and chat this artesunate. The time has elapsed. It was prescribed around 11 something, but now it's 12 and I'm going to chat this medication. All right, so I'm going to click my blue buttons just like I illustrated earlier on. And then a button is clicked. Okay, so I'm going to try and chat the artesunate. Now you see that I have 12 and it's 12 a.m. I'm going to try to chat this medication, but um the box I'm supposed to chat within is on the 11th because the medication was prescribed at 11, so it has fallen within the previous day. Now I've ticked and I'm going to set my time. Once again, I'm going to waste my time on this thing to keep clicking. This is very unnecessary. They can make this easier. Okay, now I'm done. Let me add some notes since I already know that this thing is not going to actually chat in it. It's not going to chat. So I'm adding this administered at 11 p.m. on 11/11/2022. Then I'm going to add. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back to that particular patient and then see what happened to our chat. So the box that wasn't ticked, the box I didn't tick is rather chatted here. Have you seen? Now I've gone to 11th and have you seen that this particular box that I chatted is 0? It has automatically pushed it to the next day. And that was not even what I did. Now look at my chat. The time I selected is not the time that is selected, but rather the current system time. So let's visit the treatment sheet and then see what time this system actually used to prepare the treatment sheet. So we are serving this medication at 11, but let's see. The nurse before me actually chatted his after he had given his nursing care, and you see that the time that comes is what 12. The same thing has happened to mine, and mine has even shifted into the next day. Okay, so I'm going to enter my own notes
and I'm going to set my time to actually the time I served the medication, because this is the only thing that will be accurate here. The system is actually messing up the time that I served the medication. So I am going to enter my own notes here. I'm actually going to paste my own notes here and then edit the that's a previous note, the P more to artesunate, also add the dosage and then save. Sometimes some medications refuse to chat completely, especially when it has elapsed the 24-hour period for that particular medication, or when the system thinks that a particular medication should be completed at the time that you want to chat it. But what happens is that sometimes due to unannounced lights out, which sometimes take a very long time, you may not really be able to chat the medication. But then when you come back to chat the medication, let's take a look at what happens to that medication. So I've selected this client and I'm going to chat some medications that were supposed to be chatted yesterday. So as you can see, my date is 8th, and this is the only medication that is available for 8th. But I want to rather serve a medication on the 7th, which is when the medication was prescribed. So let me change my date to 7th and then search. Now these medications were prescribed as start doses, so I'm going to take the ones that I actually served. Yeah, I think these three, and I'm going to attach some notes because I know what his system is capable of. All right, so administered now at 6 p.m. Okay, so it tells me that the prescription has been added or my chat is successful. Now let's see what happens. Let me go back there and then try to access what I have chatted. Okay, so on the 7th, you realize that what I chatted did not even appear. Let me scroll down and see if the chat actually appears. Sometimes it does, but the boxes won't tick. So on the 7th, nothing shows. Let me go to 8th and then see. And nothing shows. So should the system actually tell me I said my medication, or I'm the one who is supposed to indicate that? Let's move on to the next problem.
This client right here actually was on artesunate earlier on. Now let's take a look at the prescription from the AM. We have IV artesunate 30 milligrams. Now take note of the time, 7:43. Okay, so we come back to check. I want you to also take note of this, the date. Today is 6th. All right, so trying to chart the medication, we realize that the artesunate is not here. It was prescribed on the 5th, which is yesterday. Now, artesunate is not a traditional TID medication, though it is served 3 times. It is served 12 hourly, and it doesn't also qualify as BD because BD is served twice in a day. So, right here, I've changed my day to 5th to search. This means it was prescribed as TID because if it was prescribed at 7 a.m. and all 3 boxes appear here, then we know that it was prescribed as what TID, though it's supposed to be prescribed as a 01224 medication. Okay, now with that established, let's have a look at the real problem here. So everything has been charted within the day, and the PA or the prescriber actually had to continue the care with artesunate suspension. Now, you'd realize that artesunate suspension is supposed to be served BD, and it is served within 4 hours or 4 to 8 hours after the IV artesunate is served, which means that the PA has to actually prescribe it before the artesunate finishes. If he waits to prescribe it after the artesunate finishes, then we may end up elapsing that period because sometimes the drug is not available and the patient has to get a drug in town. Okay, so he did that. He did just that, prescribing it before. So before this artesunate completed, he prescribed the artemether lumefantrine, and this is it on the 5th. You realize that we have 2 boxes here, but by the time the artesunate completed, it was safe. So whoever did the chatting actually went ahead to chat what box the person saw on the seat. But this is going to complete in 3 days. So this is day one. On the seventh, day two. And then yeah, for at AL we have two boxes. But the last one will be on day three, which is eight. And there is no box here to chat. This tells you that the last person who will be chatting on the eighth will actually have to go back to the fifth to try and chat. Or better still, just ignore these boxes and then type in the nurse's note that he or she has served.
Now, this is especially going to make it difficult for anyone to keep track of this medicine because on the 8th, I come to chat and I realize that there is no box, which indicates that the drug should have been completed by then, only to realize later that no, there are two boxes lurking around on the 5th that were not chatted.
So an example of the medications that vanishes is this particular one I want to show you. IV artesunate was prescribed for this particular client. So looking at the prescription, you'd see that we have IV artesunate prescribed here at 20:30. That's 8:30 p.m. for this particular client on the 5th. That is yesterday, looking at my current date. Alright, so I'm going to try and find that medication. So I'm going to try to chat. And you see that the medication is not found here. If I go to Fit and search, nothing shows. So actually, apart from the prescription, there is nothing that shows that this client has the medication. Even if I go to the treatment sheet, the medication is still not available. And this actually, I think, is just a system error. So what some wards do is this: they have a whiteboard where they write all medications for the client, and then they write the form of the medication, the dosage they are supposed to give, and then the time that it will be due. So anytime they serve, they clean the time and rewrite the next time. When it's completed, they clean the whole medication from the board. So it makes it easier to keep track of which medications to serve when. So the next problem I'm going to talk about is what I'm going to use this TAP AL to explain. So looking at the restrictions that Lightwave has put in place concerning seven medications that I actually really think are very unnecessary. They are really causing problems. So let's take a look at this. This client has AL tablet. Now you can see the AL tablet here, and you can see that my time here says 10:22, but the box here is only one, which has already been ticked. That actually happened because one, the medication was prescribed at 12 p.m. Let me just find it and show it to you. This is the time at 12 p.m. So this system actually thinks that I need only one box for the day, because by the time it is the next 12, it will be the next day. And so it has pushed the rest of the boxes to the next day and have given me only one box for today. But this is actually what happened. This client was initially on artesunate. So we usually serve the tab AL 48 hours after we have completed artesunate. So this artesunate was actually completed at 6 p.m. yesterday. But since the medication was prescribed at 12 p.m., we started to serve the AL at 2. Okay, so serving the AL at 2, and what actually happens is that AL, the second dose after the first one is served 8 hours, then the rest is served 12 hours. So it's not always 12 hours like this system actually thinks. So if I serve the first dose at 2 p.m., then that means the next 8 hours is going to be at 10 p.m., which means I should have two boxes today. But because this thing has been coded to think the way it is thinking, it has given me only one box. Now I would have to go into tomorrow, which is 14th, to chat the AL. Now let's see even if it will agree, because I'm not supposed to go to tomorrow to chat medication. Because I can't go forward in time. So let me try this and see. Okay. administered at 10 p.m. on 13/11/2022. Okay, so let me add that and then go back there to see what actually happened to my chat. Okay, so as you can see, do I have the wrong person here? All right, so let's see. Okay. hmm Okay, so this is their test net. And let me go into 13th. We all saw that a single box here was ticked earlier on, right? And actually, that is what I have here. You can see that I have ale. And it is chatted against, actually was set against 2 p.m. But since the system will not allow you to save the time you set, but rather choose the time you actually chatting and make it the time you saved. I have 16 here, but it wasn't actually saved. It was set at 14. Okay, so this is mine, saved at 22. And look at what has happened to the box that was ticked earlier on. It's no longer ticked. Let me actually go into tomorrow and see what is there too. Wow, my battery is down. And nothing is ticked here. What I ticked isn't there, and what was ticked yesterday is also gone. This is actually a serious error. And before I go, I actually am not downplaying whatever Lightwave is doing. You are doing very well. There are some features that I really love about your software. For example, I really love the UI of your software, and the waiting time is very good. Any hospital that plans their care would actually use that waiting time to give care and priority to patients who has been in the queue for a long time. So it's it's really good. But some of the errors we are having here is also serious. The rest of the video is on my recommendations to Lightwave. Speaking of recommendations, there is something Lightwave can really learn from dataH. Now, this is a sample screen of where to chart medications for any client on the ward. Now, for this particular client, you would realize that the person has been on the ward for quite a while. So, looking at the medications, you see that there is a lot here. Okay, when we have a patient like this, it is very important that we are able to track which medications we've served and which ones we've not, so that we can actually give a holistic care to the patient. Now, if we are not able to keep track on whatever system we are using, then it means that continuity of care is going to be a problem. We may end up skipping some of the medications or over serving some of them, which is really bad. Okay, so I'm going to use some of the medications here as an example. Let me select ion complex, the polymaltose ion suspension, and then I would also use this particular ringer solution, 1 liter, for example. All right, so on dataH, when if I want to know the number of times someone or any medication has been served, I just have to watch going to the end of the screen where I am circling right now, and then it tells me the number of times. So for the polymaltose, I have 12 times, but looking at this ringers, 0, which means it hasn't been served by anyone. Now, to know the time it was served, I just have to click this I button. So for the polymaltose, let's use, so for the polymaltose, I have to click the I button. And then this is the times it was served. So you would realize that this was actually ordered to be served TDS. And so the time, let me begin from here. The first dose was given at 10. So counting 8 hours from 10, 6, and then 2, and then 10, and then 6. So it's easy to just know where the person has gotten to. If, for example, 10 mils TDS for 10 days means we'll be serving 30 times, and 12 times has been served here. So it means it's not completed. And when I come, I get to know the last time the last person served, and then I can also serve mine. All right. What about the ringers? I can see that it hasn't been served at all. So on dataH, to chart a medication, you just have to click on the medication right here. Enter the dosage. So let's say I'm setting up 500 mils of ringer lactate, and the route was IV. The time, I can either click here, just click on the date and select the date. Same applies to time and select the time. Or I can just type the time in here. So here I type the month. The month is 11/08/2022. If it is the time to, I can type whatever time. If it is 2 p.m. and I want the system to actually complete to add the PM for me, I type 14, and then you can see that the PM is already there. Or better still, if I want to select the PM myself, then I actually just fill the rest, and then I type 2 o'clock and type P, then the PM comes and I chart it. This is actually very simple for these reasons. Number one, everything is here to chart. I just enter. It's easier to select the dates or type the dates. So it makes me work swifter and faster. I can see the number of times that it has been saved. So the tendency that I'll save more than is low. And if I want to know the times that it was saved, I just have to click the I button and everything will be displayed for me. This makes care of the patient really easy. The next I want us to take note of is if when a medication is discontinued. So maybe for some reason the physician does not want us to continue the medication. This is what happens. So it's discontinued. Therefore, I can't even save. There is nowhere to click and save.
Asɛm bi wɔ hɔ a woka no borɔfo mu a wohu yɛ a na ɛnyɛ dɛ. Enti video no fa kan bɛka twi. Light wave minim asɛ system ngran bɛn na asɛm a yɛde abrɛ saa no. Ɛte sɛ nea yɛ a yɛwɔ ase ha se anasɛ asɛ yɛte baabi a asɛ yɛ nkura ase kakra no. Mo anhyɛ da ndwen yɛn ho saa nsa mo yɛ system no bi sei. Nanso sɛ mo de abrɛ sɛ yɛmfa nyɛ adwuma. Ode ɛtɔ da wɔ hu ha sei mutumi ma lights out say ebia 24 to 48 hours. Into we define say 36 hours mpo ni ama lights out. Wouldn't be adwin say hospital na be dia mo say obeso generator saa 36 hours ni nyina. Nti enye den a ye be o blackout kakra. Na ode ade a ye ma lights out na ebia ya so be say nursing care me de ma me patients no me document it. Na me be document na epic time a me document ni say saa time na me say saa medication no mo unse ase nti ase nhye da nim fi say untimi kan kire me say bia me njai me nursing care ni nyina nto ho na say lights na ba afi me di nduna ma me patients no na afi makotena say document na the same time aba fi say saa time na mo de prepare treatment sheet no. And as that time now, soon as PSA, you're charting medication, I say you're saving medication because I am charting the medication now. I am charting say this is the time I save. So that time is the time I say eba. So yes, treatment sheet no. Now you say it's and yet trustworthy. Won't mean trust this treatment sheet in our system na prepare no. Because say if you use that treatment sheet na you check say obi a wo follow no. One 7 medication at run time. I'm sure or best keeping medications nibi because medications no be go one time pa ho na o chat ya en chat e makra po se wa chat no baby a e bia just a nurses note a o kire no e na obekwa akọ kan wo hu e na se yan skipping so a e betimi aba se ye be serve abroso e bia na nipa na so je 3 na so e sign say ye document enti no e no ane se ye serve begum e na fa bibi ti say some medications na ya med vanishing na me try vanishing medications no vanessa odie tibia binti patient na ebia wa free mu na busuafo say nurse ni we na wakoma ya busuan ni ya duro bi manawu na me say oh enye bibia sa na me say bia ya testinate na me say mo da mo ko fa computer na bra ya mo computer no mo fa bra me enhwe na ye ko fa computer na ba ya aduro na yera avanish inti aduro na yira me ko kama asem say enu nti na say mo hwe example a media mamo dataH no so no mo hwe se na yaye no time a be serve medication no emfa ho time a ma be chat no ese say sa time no na eba time a me indicate say sa time na me serve medication ese na eba na say mo pe time a me be tena se chat here na you can create an extra field value for your database and store that one there. You can choose to show it or not to show it. So assembly per time I maybe tenase chatty and ankasa. Refer to your system and get that time. But let the other staff see the time I said I saved the medication so that they can use that one for the continuity of care for the patients. Meaning say nyame kan enti ase o mu a. Ha. Enti mo nhwe no ma e hu hia pa.